principals, and welcome to the NAESP Principal Podcast. My name is Adam Welcome. I'm an educator in California and a fellow with NAESP in the Innovation Center. My partner in crime, Rachel George, could not be with us tonight, so I am doing this one solo. We're just so excited to be bringing you all the NAESP podcasts, and if you are a longtime listener, you know that it's not just Rachel and I anymore. There's a bunch of the different centers are adding podcasts to the Principal Podcast. That was done by design, so there wasn't all these other podcasts that you had to follow and subscribe to. So everything is just channeling through this NAESP Principal Podcast. Real ideas, amazing principles to just make your leadership stronger and more innovative. And tonight, super duper excited about our guest, elementary principal, NAESP Zone 3 Director, the NDP, the National Distinguished Principal in 2019 for the state of Maryland, past MAESP President, that's the Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals. That is confusing because there's like the Minnesota Elementary, there's Missouri, there's a few different M's, and then there's MESPA with Michigan, and there's Minnesota. Without further ado, Ed Cosentino, Principal ECOS on Twitter. Ed, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, Adam. I'm really excited to be a part of the podcast. I'm a big fan of your podcast, and I'm looking forward to our conversation this evening.
That's what we call a long-time listener, but this is your first podcast you've been on. I love it, man. I'm excited.
First time for everything. I'm really excited about it.
Well, I love that because I was telling you before the show, I've been podcasting for like 10 years. So I've been on probably 1,000 episodes, and this is your first one, which is great. I'm like here to bring you along the journey. I gave a really brief introduction. Ed, go a little bit deeper, give us some background, tell us a little bit more, and we can just start there.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. This is my 26th year in education, 20th year in school administration, 11 years as a principal. I spent 9 years as an assistant principal. I am basically about a half mile from where I grew up, and I've lived here all my life in Howard County, Maryland, and Columbia, Maryland. I'm principal at Clemens Crossing Elementary School, where I've spent the last 8 years. I feel like each year is kind of like dog years, so to speak, where you have it feels like more years than it is. But yeah, it's been the last 8 years, and being principal at Clemens has been just an incredible experience. And I hope to retire from there. But it is just it is a wonderful neighborhood school in the heart of Columbia, Maryland.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ed is a NAESP groupie. We were talking before the show. He's been to like every NAESP conference in the last however many years. So if you're listening and you found this podcast kind of not through the NAESP channels and you're a principal, NAESP is really K-8. So if you're elementary or middle, go to naesp.org. Honestly, the dues are super affordable, and the benefits that you get out on the backside are just absolutely awesome. You should become a member. There's so much PD. The summer conference is really amazing. That's our NAESP plug. So first question, Ed, I used to ask the question, and I still do sometimes, like, what's your best advice for someone that wants to get into school admin? I'm not going to ask you that question. The question I'm going to ask you is, what would you tell a group of teachers so they want to get into school admin? And I feel that question is not more important, but I feel it's more critical right now. Just, there's an educator shortage. We're not even going to say that there's a teacher shortage. There's an educator shortage. So we need that next generation of people that want to get into school leadership. And the advice for school leaders, I think, is still important. But what would you tell teachers on why they should get into admin?
I think teachers, when you work with teachers and you coach them, you observe them, you work with them so closely, they have an incredible impact on their students and in their classroom. And I think that's one of those multiplier effects where a principal can have that same type of impact, but on a larger scale. And if that's something that they want to do, I love to be able to help coach future leaders, teachers into that, give them the opportunities to try it out, to try leadership, to try being a team leader, to build up capacity within their team. And I love that opportunity of grooming future leaders and even assistant principals who are interested in being principal, giving them a lot of opportunity. It's kind of like that same thing that I've had 2 assistant principals become principals in the last 4 years. And I have a new assistant principal this year, and she's fantastic. And every cycle is unique because first you kind of want to show them the ropes. And then it's that gradual release where you give them more responsibility. Sometimes they're eager and they take on more responsibility without even you having to delegate or work with them. And then it's kind of that, as my last AP, basically last year, she started off, I said, I'm going to take a big step back. This is your school. You run it. Mm-hmm. I'm here. And so it's really fun for me. After 11 years of being a principal and 20 years of being in administration, to do that, to give back, to focus on that next level. That's really where I am in this late period of time in my career, to give back, to build future leaders, and know that I've had that impact on both teachers and current assistant principals.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of misnomers out there. I know when I got into admin, people were like, oh, I don't want to miss the kids. And I feel one of those misnomers is you're not going to miss the kids. Instead of 25 or 30 kids, you now have 3, 5, 7, 800. You actually get to impact like all the kids and not just your class. Is there any other misnomers or things that you think people may not understand, not just about being a principal, but being like a school administrator in general?
Well, I think, our division is called School Management and Instructional Leadership, and you can't have one without the other. It's like the chicken and the egg. But really, I believe you have to be able to be strong with the school management so you can thrive with the instructional leadership. If one is out of kilter, you're going to spend an exorbitant amount of time on that one. So I feel like those new principals or those aspiring leaders need to understand how to manage that whole school management side of it so that they can focus completely on that instructional leadership. And for me, I feel like I can model that with my colleagues who are interested in that leadership, is that school management piece of it. The buses, the cafeteria, the schedules, all those things are routine. And then you can get into that, the real nitty gritty of school, of instructional leadership, the data, the instruction, the observations, the coaching, all of those things, and really balancing it all. I think that's one of the hardest things for aspiring leaders, is really getting the depth and the scope of it all, and to be able to balance it all.
Yeah, no, I agree. How do you plan your day? Do you plan it like Sunday for the whole week, the night before, the morning of? And then second question on this, once the day gets going, how do you prioritize your day? Because as we all know, like, oh, my calendar's awesome today. I'm going to be doing this. And then, as you know, as a principal, something happens and it gets waylaid. So how do you plan your day? And then how do you prioritize once that day gets going?
Well, I'm a big, I like that saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. And I'm very thorough with calendars, not only the day of, the week of, the month of, the whole year. And it's not like I'm planning December right now. That's been on the books during the summer. I spent a lot of time during the summer planning for the whole year, planning when I'm observing teachers in a relative scope or period of time. But then to answer your question, daily, I really try to make sure that I'm in classrooms as much as possible. And at least once a day, if not longer, interacting with kids, observing teachers, walkthroughs, things like that. But really doing what I'm supposed to do, making sure that I'm in classrooms observing teachers and providing feedback and input with instruction. And then really monitoring student progress as much as I can on a global scale, because what I try to do is empower my colleagues, my team leaders, to really manage that on the grade level, to managing all that instructional leadership as well on the grade level. And then we converse as a team or as individual teachers.
Yeah. How many kids at your school, Ed? How many students?
550 at Clemens Crossing.
Yeah, 558. So talking about your school, what are you most proud of at your school?
Well, it is, I could go on and on about the history of Columbia, but Columbia was, it's about 55 years old, and it was a planned community in the heart between Baltimore and Washington. And it's a place that I grew up in. And I'm very proud that I am leading a school in a community where I grew up. And I actually what got me into teaching was that across the field, there's a neighborhood pool. And I used to work at that pool as a teenager, 8th grade, all the way up until college. And I used to coach the team. So I know the community in that respect. So I see families that I've known for 30 years walking their dogs, and they're saying hi, and they still call me Eddie. Like, hi, Eddie. I'm like, hi, Mr. So-and-so. And so it's really that it's kind of that it's that home, that it's home. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm proud of. And I love that I'm leading the school in my community that I grew up in.
Yeah. You're a local when the old timers walk by you and they call you Eddie. So I was principal where I went to school. And I remember when I was a kid at the school that our principal used to smoke a pipe in the office. And dude, like, we're probably about the same age. I'm 43, like, I'm not that old, but like the things that they used to do not that long ago, it's so funny to like think back at those things, right?
The teacher smoking lounge back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. So, hey, we love talking about books on the podcast. What is your favorite leadership book that you've read that maybe you give to all of your new assistant principals, or you're like, oh, you got to read this book, it's really changed you? Is there that one leadership book, Ed? So
it helped in, yes, The Multiplier Effect, and I can't remember the author right now, but The Multiplier Effect is I am not a micromanager, and The Multiplier Effect, I know you're looking up right now. It basically talks about how, with the best intentions, a lot of principals have the best intentions, and sometimes they are micromanagers and they become diminishers or accidental diminishers. And I mentioned a little bit ago that I empower team leaders to help run their team, plan, do data conversations, talk about students. And the idea of the multiplier effect is if you trust your 6 to 8 team leaders, then you're empowering them and you're building leadership capacity with them. And then if they run their teams in the similar fashion of the multiplier effect, where you kind of divide and conquer among the teachers on your team, then you're building leadership capacity among them as well. And that was kind of the premise of every time I bring on somebody new team leader, new assistant principals, I use that book to help explain me. And I think it's a brilliant book for my philosophy of leadership.
Yeah, The Multiplier Effect, Tapping the Genius Inside Our Schools. Liz Weissman, Lois Allen, yes, and Elsie Foster. I'm going to dovetail a little bit. This is why I love podcasting and just connecting with other people. Ed's talking about empowering team leaders and this and that. I totally know what you're talking about. And as you're saying, my approach to that is, as a principal, I always say do as little as possible, which is just another way to look at it of like, hey, what do you think? Or, hey, you take that. And you're not doing your job. You're empowering your people to actually make decisions, because you're talking about the bus routes. You're talking about food services. You're talking about maintenance. And if you as the principal or everybody listening is trying to do everything, then you're not going to be able to do anything, or you're only going to bring your team so far because they're reliant on you for everything because they're so used to you. It's like parenting, like my wife and I, we want our kids to hang out with us when they're older, but we want them to not need us. Yeah. And we want them to just come home for Sunday dinner or, whatever, just to come and visit. And that empowerment piece. And then to your point, to this book, the multiplier effect, it's just so important to do that. What are you doing to help recruit staff for your school? I worked with hundreds of schools this year alone, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, there's an educator shortage. So is there something unique maybe that you're doing to help recruit people for your team for next year?
Yeah, well, Howard County, Maryland, the Howard County Public School System is our school system. And in Maryland, school systems are by county. We have 23 counties and then Baltimore City. So in Howard County, it's the central office basically runs the show, and we are site-based in a limited capacity. We don't get the multi-million-dollar budget and decide how we spend things. We principals don't have a say in the curriculum. We have the responsibility of implementing the curriculum from the county. So for human resources, that's all done centrally. So teachers are recruited. There are preliminary interviews, curricular interviews, and then once people pass that, then they go into a pool of candidates so that when hiring season happens, I have a pool of candidates from human resources that I can choose from. So I don't have to do, but ultimately I want my school to be a place where people want to go and where they will go on Twitter or Facebook or on our website and say, hey, that's a pretty cool place to be, or word of mouth, or look at our union surveys saying, how is it a fun place to work? Is morale high? And I believe, I'm a little bit biased, but I believe we have a great place to work. And when people ask, do you want to go work at Clemens? People want to. And so they're excited to interview with us. And so I'm not saying we don't have challenges hiring. We do with some areas of our school, but usually I'm very strategic with hiring usually we start planning for that in February once we get our allocations from central office. And then I do a survey with our staff and figure out, are you retiring? Are you looking for a change? Are you looking for a promotion? And I kind of gauge that. So immediately when we're able to hire, like we have to wait for a certain date to hire. And once we're ready to hire, I don't waste any time. Grass doesn't grow under my feet.
Right. Yeah. No, get on it. It's interesting what you're talking about with the budget. So people listening, some people don't know this. It just really depends. And where I worked in California when I was a principal was like I didn't get this big budget, but some schools, in some places, the principal will get like a $5 million budget, and you have to order toilet paper, and you have to order and do all the salaries. I mean, I had to do none of that. I got, $30,000 general fund for, teacher stuff and paper and this and that. It's really, really interesting. Just like the differences around the country. I'm actually glad I didn't have the millions of dollars, because that's a lot of money just to like divvy up, and it's just more line items that you have to worry about in your budget, right?
Well, and I don't have to worry about ordering, and I don't have to worry about budget and things like that. I do get a little bit of a budget. We call it materials of instruction, but I can focus on instruction. I don't have to worry about, did we get a bid out? Did I make sure that our everything is aligned? We do have an account, but it's not a multi-million-dollar account.
Yeah.
So
Makes it easier.
we get to focus on instruction, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. Ed, what's the coolest adventure that you've been on in your life? What did you learn from it? I feel like, I think about like my adventures in life, some planned, some unplanned. And then in the moment, you don't realize the learning and the growth. And then you look back years later, you're like, oh man, like when that thing happened or when I did that, I really learned a lot from it. Is there one of those experiences in your life that you can kind of reflect on?
Yeah, my wife and I, we love traveling. Our kids, we love traveling with our kids. I think travel is a way to open up the world, and one of the really most memorable experiences. I was selected after the 2019 NDP cycle to go to the Life Touch Memory Mission. The one that we see every time we go to a conference that they put on the screen on one of the last days, the Life Touch Memory Mission. And we went to the Dominican Republic in Costanza in the mountains, and we built a school. And it was just incredibly eye-opening. Kids are kids, no matter what country, wherever they are. Kids just their eyes lit up. And it was just a life-changing experience. But I got to meet with, not only did we help build part of the school, but I got to interact with the principal of the school and the kids of the school, teachers of the school. And even they had a 4th and 5th grade teacher who was a male teacher, and doing the same thing I started out as a teacher when I taught 4th and 5th grade. So it just, no matter what country, whatever state, whatever county, whatever jurisdiction, no matter where you are, we're all doing so many similar things. We have so many more similarities than we do differences. And that was just an incredible experience, getting to meet principals and colleagues from all over the country to help. And then we descended on Costanza, Dominican Republic, and helped build the school. And it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, I love that. And I could not agree more. I'm just going to keep spreading that. I feel like we are so much more alike and similar than we are different. And I feel I'm not bringing anything in politics or current events into this, but I think right now more than ever, our world needs more of that, more similarities, and just people realizing that people are people, kids are kids, and we all probably just want to keep our families healthy and safe and build community and just enjoy our life. I think that's a really great takeaway from a really cool adventure. What's been the biggest change that you've undergone since you started your admin journey? I feel like people evolve over time. Like, oh gosh, I used to really be like this, and now I'm not. Has there been like a big change since you started to Ed right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I had to do it all. I mean, I felt, and part of it is you have to prove yourself whenever you're in a new position or a new school. You feel like you have to prove yourself, and sometimes you don't know how to delegate or spread the wealth in the multiplier effect manner. But so I've gone from doing way too much to starting to spreading the wealth and giving other people opportunities. And I love my former assistant principal. She's a principal now. I can't remember the situation. I just remember what I was thinking. And it was when I said, I'm in the background. You're running the show right now. I'm going to give you every opportunity. And I looked at something that they were doing in the office. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'd do it that way. And I just bit my lip and sat on my hands and just let it happen. And it was fine. Everything was fine. I told her that. She's like, what was it? I was like, I can't remember what the situation was, but it was fine. And you taught me by doing that. She taught me that there are far many other opportunities or ways to solve a problem. And I listen more. I give people opportunities to do things. So I'm not doing all of it, which is good.
Yeah, no, I agree. As you're talking, I'm thinking about a simple strategy. Everybody listening, just the first question I think you should ask yourself is, should I be doing this? And if the answer is yes, then do it. And then the second part is, can somebody else be doing this? To your point, like, let's empower somebody else. I think the third point, which I think is the most important, is should nobody be doing this? And I feel like, you as the principal, to your point, Ed, shouldn't be doing everything, but then also think one step further. Should nobody, I can empower somebody else, or, shift it to somebody else. And I feel like, like what's changed in the last, not just 5 years, but like 6 months. I mean, gosh, The world's changing so fast. And just getting things, making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Ed, are you a hard worker or are you a workaholic?
Was that one of your podcasts earlier? Because I've heard this before.
It's an important question. Don't dodge the question, Ed.
I'm a hard worker. I used to be a workaholic, but I'm a hard worker.
What changed?
Prioritizing, delegating, really the teamwork aspect of it all. Everybody's here for one purpose, and that's to help kids learn. But again, that multiplier effect, being able to spread it out so everybody gets the job done together. I think that's how I've evolved as a leader over the years, being that workaholic who doesn't rest and works all weekend. I've learned over the last few years, you really have to, your downtime needs to be your downtime so you can be fresh when you're on. And it's prioritizing and so forth. But I'm a hard worker, not a workaholic.
Yeah, I mean, when you're happy and healthy at home and on the weekends, you're going to be happier and healthier when you're at work. I mean, to me, it's pretty simple. Ed, you got the microphone, man. What do you want to say to everybody listening to this podcast? Close us out.
Hey, I think I've enjoyed the networking ability with NAESP, and I think really NAESP has principals and assistant principals back, and there's so many incredible resources out there to connect people. And I'm proud to be a servant of, as a director for Zone 3, representing Maryland, Virginia, DC, West Virginia, and Ohio. I've worked really hard to kind of connect as many schools and principals and assistant principals with our Zone 3 Twitter account to hopefully lift up Zone 3. But really, if we lift up Zone 3, we also lift up all the 9 zones, and we lift up NAESP, and we lift up the profession. There's so many great things going on out there, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it and help facilitate lifting up our profession.
Heck yeah. Principal ECOS. Go to Twitter right now. Make sure you follow and connect with Ed. NAESP Zone 3 Director, NDP in 2019, past NAESP President Ed Cosentino. I want to come by your school, man. I've never been to Maryland. I've been to 44 states. So hopefully someday I can make it back. I want to come cruise the halls and see where it happens. And I can't believe you have an assistant principal with under 600 kids, man. I had like 650 and it was just me. So bro, you better never complain.
I don't complain. We got a great school system and a great school, great kids, great community. Our hashtag is great success. So
Heck yeah. I love it. Everybody listening, thanks for being here. Join NAESP, NAESP.org, and we hope that you have an absolutely amazing day.
Thank you, Adam.